Hey, kia ora whānau. How's it going? Hey, welcome back to Word on Monday for today. We are looking at the third installment of our theme for this month, and I've entitled it Alignment for Your Assignment. It's not my own term, it's a term I've heard before, and it's appropriate for us in relationship to connecting with what God is doing in our communities. Just to quickly recap, we've been taking the month of January and this Christmas period to think about starting again, reset, and new beginnings. What does it mean for us at the start of this year to think about our relationship with Jesus, our journey with Him, encouraging us and considering how we contest with our identity. And I talked about in our first message about the P.O.W. of our identities, our personal view, observed view, and our workplace. What does it mean to be a child of God in the midst of our identities that we have in relationship to personal, observed, and workplace or the marketplace? And then I did a two-parts segment on first fruits, called for a purpose, and I had 5 points in there relating to God has planned us for His pleasure and purpose, and that is that we're to love Him, that we're to worship Him. He's called us to be part of His family. We're not orphans. He's called us and planted us for redemption, this whole process of being renewed, being transformed into His likeness. He's called us and mortars us to be fruitful. The process of transformation that actually our movement in our faith is towards fruitfulness in the spirit, fruitfulness in our activities, fruitfulness in our character that reflects the character and purpose of God. And then lastly, the purpose of being fruitful is to show and testify to what Jesus is doing in our lives. And our third one under this month of starting over, reset and beginning is about our alignment. Where and who and how are we aligning? What are we doing to align ourselves to God's assignment in our lives, in our communities, in the areas that we have influence? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Opening up in Revelation chapter 1, verse 8 and 9, we see this idea that as Jesus revealed Himself to the apostle John, we see this unfolding nature about who Christ is. If you read Jesus through the Gospels, He comes as a lamb, He comes as a servant, He comes and He does things to fulfill the will of the Father. So through the Gospels, the main picture we see about Jesus is actually He's glorifying the Father. His purpose on ministry and work on the earth is to please His Father. And so if you're actually wanting to know who God is, you look to Jesus in the Gospels, because it's everything that Jesus says, his attitudes, His actions, the way He treated people. He's revealing the heart of the Father. Revelation, on the other hand, He's not a lamb any longer. He's actually a king. He's a warrior. He's the fulfillment of all the promises, and this beautiful image here where as John turns to see the voice speaking to him, he turns to the lampstand, he turns to the light, he turns to the menorah, and he sees the voice of the Lord speaking to him. And this lovely image, not contrasting, but this image of the light, the lampstand or the candlestick, is actually Jesus. And in John, he talks about, I am the light of the world. Verse 2, John, who testifies to everything he saw, that is the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. The testimony of Jesus is prophecy. When we have a word to share, or we have a story of saying something that about Jesus, we're actually giving a testimony of him. And so the scriptures give testimony to him. They unfold this idea of the King, the unfolding idea of Jesus is doing stuff. In Revelation 17:6, this is pointed further. We've got a contrast here. We've got this wickedness, this thing that represents hell, and contrast who's out there to devour and to destroy the saints, and it's actually the blood of the saints, which is a testimony of Jesus. It's the willingness to give up everything. There are the saints of old that have been fighting this dragon, that's been fighting this whore of Babylon. They've been standing against the principalities and rulers of this world, and ultimately to this idea that their blood has been shed, the saints' blood has been shed. But the imagery there is that the blood has a testimony, and the blood is testifying that Jesus is the Messiah, that Jesus is the King. And here we see this process in Revelation, that in the midst of darkness, in the midst of trial, in the midst of the apparent unleashing of evil on the world, God is still King. Jesus is still reigning. Jesus is on the throne. There are angels worshipping. There are people celebrating and worshiping Him. And He is this victory that Jesus is portraying. He's victorious in the midst of apparent darkness. Further on, we see in this first chapter of Revelation, to Him whom He loves and has freed us from the sins by His blood. That's us, whānau. That's those who call upon the name of Jesus Christ. Those, as John talked about in John chapter 1, those who received Him, those who believed in Him, He gave them the right to become children of God. But it goes deeper here in verse 6. And has made us for His kingdom, has made us to be His kingdom and priests to serve God the Father and the Father. To Him be the glory, to Him be the power forever and ever. Amen. Here is this triumphant victory that's portrayed, and there's this, we're more than what we are. We're more than what the darkness around us. We're more than the challenges that face us. We're more than the stories that have been told to us. We're more than the voices that speak to us when we look in the mirror. We're more than what the expectations and views of others have been placed upon us. Here in Revelation, we see that in the midst of trials, in the midst of the calamity that's coming, in the midst of the end time stuff, God has made a kingdom that is different to the kingdoms of this world. God has made a people who are priests. You no longer have to rely on the priest. You no longer have to go and do your sacrifices. You no longer have to do your pilgrimages. And I've said this before, we are part of God's kingdom. Throughout the story of Joel, we see this unfolding prophecy, unfolding message to the church, to the world, that God in the last days, He's pouring out His Spirit on all peoples, both male and female, old and young, children. All people have access to Christ. All people have access to God through faith in Christ Jesus. In 1 Peter chapter 2, 4 and 6, Peter unfolds the story even further by saying, you are a royal priesthood, you're a holy nation, you're set apart for things of God. And so this call to faithfulness, this call to being a people who are faithful to the witness of what Jesus is doing in our lives. So my first point for us today, in relationship to being aligned for our assignment, is a call to faithfulness. Called to faithfulness. Revelations 2:4. we see Jesus telling the church, return back to your first love. Return back to being faithful. Return back to that thing that drew you to me and me to you. Return back to the light. Return back to the candlestick. Return back into that first love that you had. He challenged the Ephesians church there. There's this challenge that goes out. You've done great things. You've done this. You've done that, and he praises the things that they've done. But he said, one thing I have against you, and that's you've lost your first love. So alignment for our assignment, our first part is actually being faithful. Returning back to our love for the Lord. Returning back for our relationship with Him. Isaiah 58, 9 and 18, this beautiful poetry and language that's revealed here, where Isaiah is in a conversation with God, and God is talking to him, and God says to him, here am I. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with pointing a finger of malice talk, if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry, satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and the night will become like noonday. So this call to faithfulness, this call to be available to what God is doing in our communities. Notice the language he uses, here am I. God is saying this to the prophet Isaiah. And it actually arcs back to Isaiah's call. God is using similar language. In other words, Isaiah and God have become familiar where they're talking the same language. In other words, Isaiah is aligned to what God is doing. In the Isaiah 6 passage, we see this image where Isaiah is in the temple and he's part and parcel of a discussion and an activity in the heavenlies. And God, through the work of the cleansing, you see the angel puts the fire on his tongue and it cleanses him. And he moves from a state of unworthiness to a state of worthy, to where he says as part of the response to the conversations that's going on in the Holy of Holies, in this temple, where God says, oh, so who shall we send? And then Isaiah puts his hand up and says, here am I, send me. And back here in Isaiah 58, here am I. This language, there's a familiarity between the prophet and God. Why? Because Isaiah has made himself available. But there are some conditions to that availability. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, if you do away with pointy finger or malice talk, there are things in the kingdom that we have to let go. We may have participated in them in the past, but once you're aligned to your assignment, you have to let some things go. You have to put some things aside. And so here, there are some conducts that those that are aligned, in this case Isaiah, he's saying you need to put it aside. And then you move into other areas. You align yourself with other things. In this case, spend yourself on the behalf of the hungry. Satisfy the needs of the oppressed. Let your light rise in the darkness and it'll become like noonday. Jesus wants to be personal with us. He wants to be in a conversation with us where we're aligned to what he's doing, where we're aligned to what he's saying, and he talks to us. Carrying on in the same Isaiah passage, the Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in the sun-scorched land. He will strengthen your frame. You will be like well-watered garden, like a spring whose water never fails. Guidance leads to strengthening. Well-watered leads to a spring that never fails. This dependency on God, this dependency on his promises, but we need to be available. And as I mentioned, I heard the voice saying, whom shall I send? And Isaiah's response was, here am I, Lord, send me. Our availability. So if we are called to be faithful, we're also called to be available to what God is doing, Take time to spend it with Jesus. Take time to learn and to listen to his voice, because it's in that availability that he goes, okay, I'll send you here, I'll send you there. Take time to be available and listen to the conversations that are around you. And as you get familiar with the Lord's voice, ask him to speak into those places that you're in, those places and environments that you're in. Ask him to speak into it. Allow God to give you godly solutions, heavenly solutions to earthly problems. And you'll find that we'll start to see the kingdom of God here on earth as it is in heaven. So my first point, being faithful. The second point is being available. And my last point is being teachable. Ephesians 5:13 onwards. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes light. This is why it is said, wake up, sleeper, rise from your dead, and Christ will shine on you. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise but wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand that what the Lord's will is for you. So here Paul is encouraging Timothy to stand in the light, to be wise, allow the light to illuminate you, allow the light of Christ to shine upon you. And it's in this contrasting idea. And it harks back to the Genesis account where you see this picture of God creating the world and creating everybody and creating things. But right at the start, there's this picture of there was darkness, there was chaos, and then God breathed. He breathed over creation, and out of chaos he brought order. And it's in this season that we live in today, in this life that we live in today, we need to be teachable. Proverbs 3 verse 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways and submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So we got to trust, we got to acknowledge, we got to submit, and he said he'll make his path straight. He'll make our path straight. So part of the growing in our faith and our discipleship is that we need to be teachable. We need to be teachable in the things that we're doing. We need to be teachable in the relationships that are around, and ask the Lord, what are you teaching me about this situation? What do I need to learn about this skill? What do I need to learn about entrepreneurship? What do I need to learn about multiple streams of income? What do I need to learn about how do I speak softly to someone that might annoy me? How do I speak into where there is violence? How do I speak into where there is sexual abuse or pornography or slavery? How do we speak into those things? What is it that you're teaching us and wanting us to be in 2022? In a time where God is revealing things, he's pouring out his light and revealing the darkness. How do we respond? How do we be faithful? How do we be available? And how do we be teachable? Whānau, we are in a season and at a time where the world is chaotic. Inflation is going up around the world. Food chain supplies are going crazy. And people are stressed out, and there's anxiety and depression and frustration. We live to a different tune. We live and we're a part of a different people and a kingdom. Kingdom people live to a different standard. And so the call for us today is to be faithful, to be available and teachable. And in the midst of our theme for this whole month, know who your identity is. If you're contesting your P.O.W, find strength in the Lord. Secondly, your first fruits. You are called for a purpose. You're not a mistake. You're not fatherless. You're in a process of being renewed. And then lastly, today's corridor is let us be aligned for our assignment. What's the thing that God's calling you to do? What is he saying to you? And are you responding? Here am I, send me. Well, whānau, that's the end of the series for this session on starting again, reset and new beginnings. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit the like, share it on to others that you think might need to hear it and be encouraged. And if you're in the Kaikoura area, come and join us on Sundays at 10 o'clock on the corner of Hongi and Broadway. We meet together and have fellowship. If you want to get together in smaller groups, we've got Women's Connect, we've got Team 117. We're looking at building up small groups this year, whānau groups where we can meet together and encourage each other. And hey, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face continually shine upon you. You are highly favoured of the Lord. We're not going back to what it used to be like. The world has changed and we need to change with it. We need to change in a way where we become confident in our identity, we know what our purpose is, and we're aligned to the assignment. So God bless, have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you. Call in if you want on Sunday next week or any other Sunday that's going on. God bless.